well, but he's just not a teacher. Black people now want to be taught. They don't want to be just spoken to. They want to learn something now. They want to clear the smoke.
So what is his purpose?
You have to ask him that. You can't ask me what his minutes of fire conference. You have to go to him and ask him that.
Brought to you by Emory University.
One of the things that I find absolutely fascinating is how the possibility of what the civil rights movement could have been as a human rights movement. In the 1940s, the NAACP had begun to conceptualize the issue facing Black people in America, not as civil rights, the right to vote, the right to a fair trial, the right to a jury of your peers, the right not to be illegally searched and seized, those things that we know as the Bill of Rights, but instead as human rights, the right to education, the right to health care, the right to housing, the right to employment. And the thing that was driving the NAACP to, in fact, look at this was the condition of Black America in the 1940s. You know, the massive discrimination, the kinds of public policies that were being put in place that systematically excluded African Americans from the bounty of America. For instance, there was the Social Security Act in the 1930s. We understand Social Security today. But in the 1930s, it was put in place because people had worked so hard only to have the economic destruction of the Depression throw them out of work with absolutely nothing, barely the clothes on their backs. And these are people who had worked for 30, 40 years. So what happened with the Social Security Act is that you have this powerful, wonderful piece of legislation. And then the Southern Democrats made sure that what was inserted in this legislation to provide the safety net was to, in fact, exclude two of the major occupations that African Americans held, domestic workers and the agricultural field. So, in fact, you had 70% of African Americans excluded from Social Security for decades. This is part.
Peace and love, family. This is a great segue. I know it's a little bit different. Me bringing the show on, showing the videos in the beginning. I think I'll start doing that from now on. This video, this post, this live is for educational purposes only. And we do not stand or condone or lead towards any political party ideology. This is just for educational purposes only. Excuse me. And today we're going to talk about civil rights as it pertains to Negroes, Blacks, and colored folks. First, introducing to the stage the Uncharted Truth. She's back in the building. She's a fan favorite. Peace and love. How you doing? Thank you on mute. Hold on.
Oh, okay.
There you go. Peace and love. What's going on? All good.
Sorry about that. How are you?
All is well.
Good. Glad to be back. And thanks for having me. Hello to the chat and Greg. Hello.
Peace and love. Hey, we got the good brother Greg.
How you doing? Been a minute. Still ain't figured out how to do this little picture thing. So
okay, look help you out right now. Besides your logo, your thing, do you see three little dots
at the bottom for more?
Yeah, anywhere, three little dots.
Okay, settings.
Yep. In your settings, you should be able to change your picture. To say something like that.
See, all it shows for me is camera and audio.
Camera and audio.
Frank has to do that before he joins, I believe. I can't recall.
Interesting.
Yes.
I can't do it on my end either. We'll get you right though. We'll get you right.
All right.
That's right. But the Greg, tell people who you are, man. They ain't heard you in a while.
For the people who haven't heard me, I'm Atlanta-based trainer. just got into digging into our history just through the really initially from the Hebrew Israelite movement, and found out how much I was being misled by a number of people in that movement, and that opened up a whole rabbit hole that led me to layers of deception, both white and black, and that's where we at now.
Wow. So, Jack and I already said it's going to be a good show. What I will ask you guys to do is to please hit the share button, hit the like button. If you're not already subscribed, definitely subscribe. But all about the matter, sharing this information, please share. The topic of this is NAACP, get them to the poll. What is y'all take on NAACP? Do y'all know what that is? I'm being facetious, of course, but do you guys know what the NAACP is? Tell me, Uncharted Truth, what you know, because I know Greg knows. He's going to go in. I want to give you the floor first. What is your take about the NAACP?
Is it fair not to have one? Is it really just okay to
At
say?
this point.
I don't really have anything to say about it. I mean, I know what it is, but I disregard them. I hate to be ugly, but
have they been national advocates for the advancement of colored people?
No.
Hell no.
No, absolutely not.
Brother Greg, please.
Okay, again, to ignore.
Right. No, I'm with you.
And that affirmative hell no. As a matter of fact, they've been the exact opposite. They stem from the families of black people who were free long before other black families, and now stand as the middleman between us and any type of progression. As long as they keep us in check, they stay good.
So, are you saying the NAACP is the vanguard, the gatekeepers?
The gatekeepers, the vanguard, and the masters of emotional manipulation.
Emotional manipulation. Good God Almighty.
I mean, like magicians.
Magicians, I got you. But that was powerful too. So, of course, keeping the tradition before we go any further, let me hop to the chat real quick. Bruce Lee checking in. Peace and love. True King. And these brothers are always like the top 3 or 4 or 5 tapping in early. Solo 5K in the building.
That's what's up, though.
Underground Production in the building. Pharaoh Israel is in the building. Rhonda Moore is in the building. Gas Free, y'all checking there. I know that's right. The L's and the Bays in the building. The Wheels and the Ways. Bigger Milton. What up, Milt? Pen and Pad Gang in the building. Miss Monique is in the building. Chris. Will of the Moon. This sister's always here too. She's another fan favorite, always in the building. Divine Feminine Energy's in the building. Okay. Y'all in here. We see y'all, man. We see y'all. Shouts to the chat. Be sure to hit that share button, man. Hit that like button. Let's get these views up while we get into this. We just getting started. We just basically going over this video. It's by PBS documentary. It's about maybe 30 minutes, but we're not gonna watch all that. But I just wanted to hear that intro speech from the lady who was telling you what this whole thing was about. Like, it's grassroots. And like Greg just said, the emotional tap in, I think, with black people has been very, very powerful. So let's say NAACP is a far left Marxist organization fed to the black people by the Rockefeller and the Rothschilds. W.E.B. Du Bois is the communist puppet master. Good God Almighty. Please, guys, add value to what's this at. Either one, that's right. What makes the statement right? What makes it right?
There's really nothing more to say. Like, it is absolutely socialist Marxism based ideology that drives us to believe that we are entitled without responsibility. And they know that the psychology of that will never allow you to grow. So if I can get you to stay like this and think like this, you will never be a problem. And as long as I get paid to do it, I'm going to get better and better at it.
Wow. You, milady?
How did you follow that? I mean, they both hit the nail on the head. Deception and mind control, and a lot of this is backed by agencies. Okay.
That's
And
facts.
that's something we have to also keep in consideration. I know I spoke on this. Our last live was how the powers, and he's actually saying the name Rockefeller and Rothschilds, how they are so based in these organizations, and not just in NAACP, but anything where the boule is present, they've already laid that foundation for us to take over. Is it okay to say boule?
No, it's fine. I was like, ooh, like
This is what they are.
like bingo. I forgot about them. Ooh,
Yeah, you know?
they're part of it.
So they're the foundation of it. So I think a few years ago we looked into funding for HBCUs, and one of those names popped up, and it's just they have a way, and by they we already spoken the names, but of this is what you're able to do. Here's your box. Let's put whoever you want to put in here, but make sure that box doesn't really expand outside of our standards for your kind, if you will.
That makes sense.
So,
it makes sense.
I'm being very PG right now. I don't know why I'm being PG, but maybe I will loosen up.
Man, yeah. You'll come out the shell in a second. Bro said it's called soft communism, laced with social status. Wow. So
Facts.
now, on top of the brother mentioned people are like Rockefeller, and we all know that Rockefeller basically his comment was he don't want a nation of thinkers, he want a nation of workers, pretty much, right? So people I always hear people say Rockefeller of Rothschilds. I have hardly ever heard anybody mention this guy right here, which is one of the biggest proponents as it affects so-called Negroes. Horace Mann. And if you guys, I'm not gonna go all into it, but if you guys don't look into Horace Mann, you're doing yourself an injustice. If you don't look into Melville Herkovich and Franz Boas, if you don't look into these people who were the pioneers of the current education and the way you learn about African American history and the way you learn about period. The idea of the system of schools that your children are currently in right now, your kids are learning the same math that you learned. All of us over 40 and your mom and your grandma. It's the same curriculum that they had. Generating a nation of workers. Horace Mann. Now, Horace Mann's going to take you back to the area called Prussia. Prussia, before it was called Russia. It's called Prussia.
Add in Edward Bernays, too. Edward Bernays. They played off of him, too.
That's another one. But people like this guy right here, Horace Mann. You have others, Rockefeller, even General Howard and others who was creating what was called assimilating schools. There's assimilating schools, as I talked about before, had both supposed Negroes and Indians in the same institution before there was integration, before there was HBCU. There were no HBCUs yet. HBCUs don't get their land grant until 1890. I'm talking about 1860, 1840s. So be sure to look at people like him. And I find it that the education of Negroes is not too far away from the politics of Negroes. Like they're not, I'm saying they're like we're separate people, but our people, let me speak like that. Our people are just not up on game when it comes to political and social have been the two areas that so-called Black people in America have always suffered from, social and political. And anytime election season come around, they always seem to stimulate the social and political views of Negroes just by dialing up the temperature and dialing it down, just by saying so. So look, we're giving you the first Black, and then they're pushing the first Black female president, which we know she not,
kind of Black.
you know,
Maybe.
Kamala's like that cousin. You just gotta. She's just some kid in there some kind of way. We don't know who her dad is. Kamala's one of those cousins. You just don't pay no attention for real. But outside of that, like I don't see what's wrong with voting for who you want to vote for. She would have got my vote. She would have had my vote if she simply would have just told us what she was standing for. Like, just, I don't understand what's so hard about that. Like, she might would have got a lot more black votes, and Daddy Barack probably would have gotten involved and got on these Negroes' booties. Like, hey, y'all, but Barack did his thing. Barack is not black either, but he's not. These people are not who you think they are.
They're not.
And I'm not saying that they're like political puppets. I'm saying that they're not. You will never see a black person from America, a Negro who went to Booker T. Washington High School, graduated over here, used to work in the shipyard. You would never see them kind of niggas inside the White House at all. You would see like first generational supposed African Americans. Those are first generationals. Barack daddy ain't from here. Mom ain't from here. What's the name? Mom ain't from here. Her dad ain't from here either. These are immigrants. These are immigrants. And because they know the association of skin tone for the Negroes in America, it wasn't like this. Like your grandma them knew better. Grandma them knew better. In fact, I'm gonna see what y'all think. I think the people of the 60s, the 40s, and 50s were more politically aware than we are now.
Absolutely. I mean, even the further you go back,
Yeah,
it gets more and more and
we're gonna go
more
there.
aware.
We definitely gonna go there. We'll go all the way back there with that. So these signs we see, it says, welcome Harry S. Truman, champion of civil rights, Negro Labor Committee. This is the same campaign they're doing for Trump. Y'all know who Harry Truman was, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. They got Negroes vote for Truman. Rallying behind Truman, same way they rallied behind Trump.
Reagan, Bush. Yeah.
It goes on. You're right.
It goes
The same exact way they rallied behind them. And part of the job of the NAACP is to make sure that you Negroes vote. I saw a video on TikTok. Let's see if I can pull it up real quick. It just broke my whole heart to see this happen. I was like, oh my God. Get him out the street, y'all. There's a video, there was a march of older black people marching down this long road, and they were going to go vote. I'm like, this is the 60s or 2000? This is 2024 video. If I can get it pulled up here. And I'm like, what is going on? And they got their Sunday best on. And it dawned on me that generation holds on to the idea of voting as if voting hold on, y'all. As if voting really changes something. Like that generation really, really believed in that. It's another lady that went viral on TikTok because she had her voter registration from the 60s on her chest, on her t-shirt. And she was saying back then it was like $2 to vote. So they didn't have enough money to vote. So they had to choose between eating or voting in the 60s. And she told the guy, of course I chose to vote. I mean, to eat. So I didn't get a chance to vote. So the whole point was, so I'm seeing this rally around the older black people and the legacy of civil rights and the legacy of voting. And I want to see what you guys think about it. Let me get to this. Keep in mind, this is 2024. This is not the 60s. Check this out.
I'm interested in hearing more about them being the first incorporated black town in all of America. See that?
That was struck out for me too, actually.
That stood out more than anything else.
Eastonville is the first black incorporated town in America. Let's go look it up. Let's go look up.
Yeah, that's more interesting than the black church supporting everything
Really?
and
But that's very
and,
used to that. I've seen that
uh,
before.
in every ideology that's anti-Christian.
What you
Interesting
mean?
to me. Like the entire Democratic Party's ideology is anti-Christian.
Right.
It's the exact opposite.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
Where
like,
you
I
going?
mean, do what you do. You know?
I'm reading. It's part of the Greater Orlando, and it was incorporated August 15 of 1887, and it was one of the first. So, see, one of the first self-governing all black towns in the United States.
When was this?
1887.
No. Wait a minute. Hold on.
Yeah, I'm
Hold on.
confused on that date.
Hold on.
They might
Hold on.
mean to say in Florida, but not really America, because that might be way off.
Well, that's a clickbait situation to say in America. It's like all three Americas. Come on, man. What are we talking about? But this guy I thought was what's his name? I thought this place was it's older than that. You said 1878 for that place?
1887.
1887, okay.
Same.
Look at this right here.
1887. Interesting.
When they wanna erase an old history, you'll see repeated dates like this over and over and over.
True. That is very true.
That's crazy that I remember that. I'm like, hold on, wait a minute. That date sounds familiar as hell. That date sounds real familiar. You guys know this is Mound Bayou. This was the first African American majority community in Mississippi. But Florida, I didn't know about Florida though. That's new.
Mm-hmm.
All right, let's move on. I'm gonna cue this back up for like 5 more minutes. I think it's interesting.
Part of what the NAACP is looking at. What they're also seeing in terms of education, we think about the Brown decision of 1954. But going before that, as the NAACP was looking at the conditions in these poll tax states, such as South Carolina, Georgia, Alabama, Mississippi, Louisiana, because the quality of education was so horrific for African Americans, over 50% of adult African Americans over the age of 25 had less than 5 years of formal education. Begin to think about what that means when you've got over half of your adult population having less than 5 years of formal education. Think about how well you're able.
Now, think about 2024 when we think about statistics when it comes to young black minorities who are not completing school or dropping out of school, who are not even going to school. Think about how many so-called brothers and sisters who are not formally educated at all. I mean, just didn't go to high school at all. In these small rural cities around Georgia and other locations, Alabama, Mississippi, these small rural cities like that, nobody's really giving a flying flip because those YT people got charter school and private schools now. I was in Montgomery, Alabama when they were soliciting lobbying money from this private institution of majority YT students, high school, middle school, and I've seen the condition of the high schools down there. That's happening now. You'd be hard pressed to find a young brother who's like supposedly out in the street doing his thing past the age of 22 to graduate it. Dr. Claude Anderson spoke on this too, like as far as the statistics of so-called black people in America. I think it was maybe like 8, 9, 10 years ago when he did his first lecture in one of those churches. He was telling us back then, 10 years ago, was about to happen in America about other people coming into America and will put you at the lowest status.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Why
I
is
do
your
remember that.
vote so important, black people? Why are the black votes so important? Let me ask y'all that question. Why are the black Negro votes so important? What makes our vote so valuable?
I don't believe it is. I think it's,
Thank
in
you.
my opinion, it's a mental game to make you feel as though you're involved in some type of progress that never takes place, so that you can continue to put the onus of responsibility on someone other than yourselves
So you saying
for that.
black people are blaming somebody else for their problems?
I mean,
happens.
that's the entire culture. As far as that specific subset of our culture, like Eatonville right now with all the churches sending people to vote. If everything doesn't go the way that they wanted to go, the onus of responsibility will then be on. They can place it on the politician rather than on themselves for their own lack of progress. Like your vote is never going to give you progress. You got to do something with whatever it is that comes from that vote.
The group dynamics that I'm just gonna piggyback on what he said, but we are people who want, we have to or must do everything as a group, but there are no groups. We're so divided, but we have to find something that we belong to, an ideology we belong to. And he also touched on morally it's wrong based on a belief that one day they're going to church and you're supposed to believe this according to religion, but as an individual, there's no base, there's no foundation. So you have a people that's all over the place. They have to belong to something. They got to fit in somewhere.
Right.
I don't believe voting means anything based on what they're trying to make it seem for us.
Now, let me challenge that ideology as it relates to the local level.
Oh, that's totally different.
Why is it different voting local level than voting for the president of the United States?
You have to remember, to be able to vote, you have to have a residence. Most men are on someone else's residence. It's not even theirs.
Wow.
So you have to think of the dynamics of how to vote, what is required to vote. And that also goes back to back in the day. If you were on a plantation, you couldn't vote because you don't have a residence. It still applies today. There's no ownership. Once you get rid of ownership, and this goes back to even buying DVDs and CDs. I can watch my CD or DVD anytime I want. Now, if Netflix says no more, you have no ownership. So you can't even enjoy entertainment. Once we realize the impact of ownership, the mindset changes. But I don't want to go into the history because I know you're going to touch on that. But nothing has changed, really. Nothing.
And
except for what you said. Except for what you said. The ownership, the actual ownership, has been chipped away from everything.
Yes.
At this point, so it's like now your vote. Matter of fact, even if you vote locally, like it matters to an extent, because if you vote and then you get involved in the census is what they're going to use to distribute the funds, however they're going to distribute them. But that is also based on whoever it is that you vote in and their budget plan, right? But if you don't own anything, they don't really take your vote serious. It doesn't matter that you vote. You just put it out there and they make you feel like you're involved, but you're not.
It's the illusion of inclusion. The illusion of inclusion. So what I'm gonna do now is hop on a quick timeline, because the question I asked you, I said, when did black people lose their right to vote? And I'm like trying to go through my head through a timeline, like when did it happen? Like, how did it happen? They say y'all can't vote no more because in the 1700s you were voting.
A better question is not about black folk, but what class? It came down to what tax bracket were you even in? Are you even in a tax bracket, or are you under your owner's tax bracket? That's where the 3/5 come in, because I can't even count you. I can count them too, but I can't count you because it was all a tax thing. But anyway, go ahead. Not all, but yes, yeah.
The 3/5 compromise has been one of the biggest misconceptions of the Negro.
I don't believe I misspoke.
No, not not you. I'm saying like the 3/5
Oh, it
compromise.
is. I understand what you're saying. Yes, it
The
is.
3/5 compromise was them passing legislation to say out of every 5 people, only count 3.
Only count 3. Yeah.
Yeah, it was the head
Yeah.
count. Some people be thinking that means that we get reduced to 3/5 of a person. Like, no, man.
No.
That's one of the biggest misconceptions out there ever.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
I want to take a quick scroll through the timeline because this timeline was completely interesting to me. Of course, this is wiki, so take it
Can
with
we
a
look
grain
and
of
see
salt.
when it was last edited? Can we look at that part?
Where is the part? I don't even think about that.
It might be at the very end. But go ahead and do what you're gonna do.
Oh,
I always look at that part.
Just remind me when we get down there.
Sure.
So this is the timeline of voting rights in the United States, documenting when various groups in the country gained the right to vote or were disenfranchised. Pay attention to that. That's going to be the part you want to pay attention to, because at one point in time, only people with money and landowners could vote. That means all those white tea slaves that was over here in America could not vote. If you was a white tea woman, you had no chance in hell until about the 60s to even think about doing anything with your rights, your body, your mind, anything. Okay. So I think damn near black women always got the right to vote before white women did. So I wanted to go through history and find out, when did we lose our privilege or right to vote? Like, when did it go away and what happened to it? And this timelines kind of helped to show us some perspectives. 1780s in America, the Constitution of the United States recognized that the states have the power to set voting requirements. A few states allowed free black men to vote. Interesting. This is 1789. This is about 20 or so years right after the Revolutionary War. In fact, the war was 1776. This is 1789. So what? Looking at 13 years. Quick math. This is not very long after the country is formally announced as a constituted body of people, entity, right? And no mention of black people were in the Constitution, or white for that matter. Ambiguous language was used in the Constitution to denote a certain class of people. Class. So America used to be founded upon what was known as the caste system, CAST. Classism comes later. Classes, like, there's not enough money in America to be classes. Like, there's no classes yet, but that's coming. The caste came over here. Go ahead, bro.
I find it very interesting that it said property owning or tax paying white males only made up about 6% of the population.
Oh, trust me, brother.
I'm saying, like, who was the rest of the population?
4 more years, like when I go 4 more spots, you can be like, oh God, like it's gonna bust your head. I'm like, oh shit, they put this in here. If you know what you're looking for, it's pretty interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, so to your point, like I said, not many YT people even here voting. Generally, states limited this right to property owning or tax paying white males, about 6% of the population. We know what the other freaking 94% of the population was in 1789. I would hope we know that, right? We know who was really here running shit. That's who. Let's keep going. Now, 1790, something interesting happened in 1790. We get what was called the you get the first census in 1790.
Mm-hmm.
You also get it was called the Naturalization Act.
Well, there was a census, but it was burnt down due to what was it? That after the war, they burnt down that building, and you can't go back past 17. Thank you. Yeah, you can't go past that.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah.
Damn, I didn't know that.
Sorry,
so this is the Naturalization Act of 1790. It allows free white persons born outside of the United States to become citizens. So before 1790, white people were not even citizens of this area, right? We were naturalized. I'm sorry, we were nationalized. We're the nationals. So when they say the outstanding national debt, that's owed to the nationals. They're naturalizing themselves. However, since each state set its own required by voting, and its successor, Naturalization Act of 1795, did not automatically grant these naturalized citizens the right to vote. So even with that, white people still don't get the right to vote. You guys are seeing that, right? Even with the Act of 1795, that did not automatically grant those free white persons the right to vote.
I'm tracking.
You were voting in 1789.
But they weren't.
They were not voting in 1790. Let's watch what a switch happened. Watch for the bait and switch, though. Vermont had admitted as a new state, giving the vote to all men, regardless of color or property. So now Vermont, you can vote in Vermont as a person of color in 1791. In New Hampshire, it removes property ownership to require a vote. So now everybody's voting. In Kentucky, it admitted as a new state, giving the vote to free men, regardless of color or property ownership, although the vote would shortly be taken away from free black people. We'll see in a minute. Watch this. Delaware removes the property ownership because the reason everybody's removing the property ownership, because in the interim in America, you had to be a property owner. That came on what was called head rights. Head rights guaranteed you land once you finish your contract, your 7-year contract. But because places like Virginia, the Carolinas, and Georgia was set up on what was called land proprietors, or under the lower proprietors, whatever you grew on that land, you have to give a portion back to the crown. And that's still in effect to today. It never went away. Georgia removes taxes required for voting. There was a poll tax. Georgia says we'll get rid of that poll tax. 1798. 1800s, 3 states, Kentucky, New Hampshire, Vermont, had universal white male suffrage. Here's the kicker. Here's where it happens. It blew my mind. 1800s is when it happened. Matter of fact, 1800s to 1867, 69, all the way through the black Christian codes, they're going to start messing with black people off the rip. Just do legislation, just do policy, just do BS. In 1800s, they felt like there was a universal white male suffrage. This was where the YT lobbyists and petitioners for different policies, updated policies, begin to all agree that their poor white men need some help. They need help leveraging their power. Because in the 1800s, all the way through 1867, particularly right after the Civil War, the South was being ran by a black parliament. It's called Black Rule. I showed you guys already before. I'm going to show you other documents from South Carolina, Mississippi, and places down south where Negroes just ran the whole South. So the Reconstruction era is when they reversed everything. All the way to Lyndon B. Johnson. 1807, voting rights are taken away from free black men and all women in New Jersey. If you're in New Jersey, that was it. Couldn't vote no more just because you're black. 15th Amendment hadn't came yet. That's coming. 1819, economic crisis stemming from the Panic of 1819 led to greater calls for propertyless men for the abolition of restriction of voting. 1830, the number of states with universal white male suffrage had risen to 10. Although 6 still had property qualifications, the 8 had taxpaying qualification. Territories on the frontier eager to attract new settlers also helped expand suffrage. Do you understand that shit?
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, following.
New states in the Western Territory under what's called Manifest Destiny in 1840s. Those new territories, new states opened up with no restrictions for those white males to vote. So all those immigrants that come pouring into the United States between the 1800s and the 1900s, up to Ellis Island, millions of white people poured in here. From the West Coast too, just poured in. All those individuals were automatically citizens, had the right to vote. That sound familiar?
Yep. Replacement theory of politics again. It's a well tracked and well designed plot, really. They've done it more than once. They know how to do it. It ain't nothing to repeat it.
The same shit they doing now is the same shit they did back then. It's crazy. 1819. 1821, New York held a constitutional convention which removed requirements for white male voters, but required person of color to own $250 for property over and above all debts in order to vote. There they go. This is how you begin to lose your rights to vote. This is the dawn of colorable law. This is the colorable part of it right here. That's why they keep changing. That's why in 1790 they had to incorporate what was called the what was it called? The census. And every 10-year census, they kept changing your designation.
Nationality, it wasn't even a nationality. I'm sorry.
Designation. It's a
Misspoke.
designation.
I misspoke.
It's designation.
Yeah.
This is why the noble Drew Ali, more science temple, they say according to science, all black means death. They're talking about political science and social science. Those two sciences. The word black don't mean nothing in those sciences. Literally. White male voters were instead required to pay a tax, but this rule was abolished and amended in the 1826. Sorry, that was abolished. So now white people are not paying no taxes to vote at all. Requirements for persons of color were not affected by this amendment due to the state policy of gradual emancipation slavery persisting in 1827. Pay attention. They need more people to vote. Ooh, if we free all those supposed Negroes down there, they have the right to vote now. Ooh, we better suppress slavery. Bet not let them get free and learn they can vote. They can really run some shit then. Lincoln, no, we have to get rid of that. This is how we get rid of it. Just free them all, and then they're citizens automatically. Then they have the right to vote. Next election season, they changed the whole dynamic by doing that, right? Which brings me to what I was saying to you earlier about Juneteenth. Same thing happened in Juneteenth. They were reading a letter to two different groups of people, enslaved and free people.
Yeah.
Once the enslaved people got free, the free people went to go teach the enslaved people how to vote. Juneteenth. That's why Juneteenth is celebrated as one of those marquees, just like Selma, Alabama, and all the other so-called black struggles. It's because there was a marquee moment for them to get Negroes to vote. The community-based advocacy echoed that found in the earliest Juneteenth celebration, during which organizers held political rallies and provided newly freed individuals with information about their voting rights. That's what made Juneteenth so popular. There were free Negroes in the community, which the letter states, begin to teach the enslaved Negroes, hey, y'all know y'all can vote? We's can vote? Yeah, y'all can vote. How we do that? Oh, it's easy. Just come down and register. I mean, I wasn't there, but I would imagine.
That's a good impersonation.
2024, they're telling you the same thing. Make sure you vote. Get down to them polls. Are you voting? Did you vote? Where's your sticker?
Yeah, we sound about the same. Eyes could do that. Don't know what half people don't know what they voting on or voting about.
And listen, can't tell you nothing. So this idea of Juneteenth is what kicks off another radical movement of Negroes in the South to become voters. This scares the bejesus out of white people. If all these Negroes get the right to vote, they're gonna wipe us off the map easily. They're not gonna have a political stronghold anymore. And we talked about this before we started the show. The 3/5 compromise. Because the states are now understanding that, wait a minute, whoever has the biggest population of newly free people, because the white people are still coming they haven't all got here yet. They're still coming. You know, they on the Oregon Trail. They haven't built their cabins yet. And the engines are fighting them too. So they haven't really got established yet. But these Negroes who've been here 10 generations already, plus, they're now voting. I showed you earlier, Negroes could vote. They're voting by the tens of thousands. They're turning the tides of the political ramification of America. White people still don't have a strong hold in America politically at this time at all. That's why you see the bombardment of all white presidents come in and their white administrations come in, and they begin to rule from that seat. Then you start seeing white governors hold stronghold in certain states, and then their little cabins, and then little small cities like what's it called? Where you from?
What?
What's the name of your city?
Oh, you can't say it, right? Dothan.
Dothan.
Oh,
You see little
Alabama,
cities
huh?
like you see little
Alabama.
small, Yeah,
Okay.
you start seeing little cities like Dalton, Alabama, pop up, and the municipality has an all-white administration, and nobody can run it but them. That's all that was happening with Dr. King, y'all, when he was going out to the South, and those white police and those YT politicians wouldn't let Negroes sit at counters or do. It was just a policy of the city because wasn't enough black votes to overturn that policy. So they strong armed that shit by marching and putting the eyes of America on them. You have anything to add to this before I move on?
I mean, back when marching worked, but nah, nothing to add.
When we
You said
thought it
back
worked.
when
When we
marching
thought it
worked?
worked.
Yeah, okay, better.
So you're a fan
better
of marching?
No, absolutely not.
Okay. I was asking. I mean, I don't see the point in it. I think the whole time they was just sitting in, they could have just had their own bus stations and their own buses like we used to have, remember?
Yeah,
Those
exactly.
stories, we used to have our own buses. So
We were the manufacturers.
it wouldn't have been in Rosa
everything.
Parks in the first place.
Like, just flip it.
Which that Rosa Parks shit was a coup too, because she wasn't the first one to sit down.
She was just the first one to sit down for a photo shoot.
She replaced the woman who had a
Damn.
child out of wedlock. That's what it was.
Jesus Christ, y'all. Y'all don't win in on the lady.
I'm just y'all ain't nobody asked how there was a cameraman just waiting.
God damn, he needs.
I mean, it was a cameraman just waiting to take a picture.
Right. Actually, we replaced her. She was a placeholder.
Exactly. Like, I'm just sitting
The
there.
original one was pregnant out of wedlock. They said we can't use her. Not in the
Yeah, they
60s.
literally mimicked it.
Ooh,
And then
boy,
took
they
a
could
picture.
not have that.
We gotta get somebody else.
They could not have that happen. They could not have that happen.
And he caught her looking out the window. She ain't look at him, taking a picture, nothing. Like, okay.
Not the look away photo.
You know what I'm saying? Like, all right.
The look away photo is fucking crazy.
It was very what's the word when you're photogenic? Yeah, very photogenic. She was ready.
Absolutely.
But that's
They got
one
Family
thing,
and good too.
you cannot talk to African Americans about 5 people. You can't talk to them about Jesus, Martin Luther King, Barack Obama,
Beyonce.
Beyonce, and Harriet Tubman. I'm going to add Rosa for the 6th person. It's crazy. Certain people, when you say African American history, your mind goes to 4 or 5 top 5 people automatically. Who thought of Frederick Douglass automatically? Who thought of Martin Luther King automatically?
Harriet
Like,
Tubman.
this shit has been supplanted in our mind, our thinking that this is African American history, that this is part of it. Let's move on. It's crazy. Requirements for persons of color. Listen, watch the hijack. Persons of color. That means American Indians and everybody. This is 1821. Watch this now. Requirements for persons of color were not affected by this amendment due to the state's policy of gradual emancipation. Slavery persisted to 1827, but then the proportion of African Americans who were free and thus potential voters steady increased. Native Americans still control large territories in upstate New York, and though typically excluded from citizenship altogether, the property requirements apply to any voter who was not white. They voting, y'all. 28, the presidential election was the first one which non-property holding white. Why do they keep saying the property? Like, why is the property thing such a big deal?
Whole people.
Why is it
saying
a big
why?
deal? Yeah, why is it such a big deal?
Because it's a huge difference in citizen and residents or resident.
Okay, explain, because I thought they were the same thing.
No. You can be a resident and a citizen, but not necessarily a citizen and being a resident. For example, housing for the immigrants or those who are migrating here, they're not necessarily residents unless they are housed. That's what's going on right now. You have all of the influx of people coming in.
Oh God, they're gonna have an address for. They got an address now.
Yeah, they have an address now, or
So
they're
by
being
default-
they're being supplied one.
So by default, they are
And look at where the immigrants. I don't know if you guys know, but immigration
Chicago,
or
New York,
they're going into the metro cities.
the
the
black
metro cities.
neighborhoods.
And well, they're not even black neighborhoods anymore. Blacks have dropped to 12% as of May, 12%, while the illegal immigration is up to 22% as of May
That
of
is
this summer.
crazy.
Insane. Insane.
That is crazy.
So that's why you see the non-property holding, meaning they're not a resident.
Got it.
And look who's championing the most for immigrants. Who we think doing that? It's always our people. Self-destructive to the core.
Psychoneurosis. The 1828. Hey, it's the truth. I mean, just hear y'all talk about it. Like it's the definition. Those who have incurred psychological ills, like they're crazy. 1828 presidential election was the first in which non-property holding white males could vote in the vast majority of states. By the end of 1820s,
might mean immigrants. It might mean that.
It very well could. By the
that
end
time frame, 1828, maybe.
By the 1820s, the attitudes and state laws had shifted in favor of the universal white male suffrage. Look up the white male suffrage. Matter of fact, I'm gonna do it for y'all.
I just did. I mean, actually, I have it up.
Can you share screen?
I don't think I can if you're sharing. I'll just.
No, you can.
Oh, I can.
Yeah. Open the window.
Okay, now you got me acting slow because I have a different window open. Hold on. Hold on. I mean, I can just read it because it's just a definition.
Oh yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Under this new constitution adopted, this one says 1821, all adult white males were allowed to vote as long as they paid taxes or had served in the military.
That's the only requirement they had.
That's it. And then 5 years later, an amendment to the state's constitution eliminated the tax paying and military requirements or qualifications, thereby establishing universal white manhood suffrage.
That is crazy.
The end.
Maryland passed laws to allow Jews to vote. Maryland was the last state to remove the religious restriction of voting. Watch this though. Voting 1837. Voting rights are taken away from free blacks in Pennsylvania. Ironically, around the same time between the late 1820s and mid 1830s, this is the cotton boom of the South. This is 1840, 1841. This is 12 Years a Slave, the movie. When it came on, this is the time of kidnapping and intercontinental trading of Negroes. They lost their right to vote. They lost their right to citizenship. They lost themselves totally through legislation. In 38, Kentucky women are allowed to vote on school election. 1840. This is the turnout soared during the 1830s, reaching 80% of adult white male population in 1840 election. This is when the white male population exploded when it came to voting. They were not voting prior to 1840. They couldn't vote. A lot of them were under indentured servitude. They could not vote. They were not property owners. Heads' rights gave some of those property. The other property only had to wait 7 years till the contract was done. Then they become property owners. But you saw the states were like waving all that shit. Like, fuck it. Just be white. That's all you got to do. Just be white. The Dora Rebel takes place in Rhode Island because men who did not own land could not vote. Rhode Island drafts a new constitution extending voting rights to any free man, regardless whether they own property, provided they pay $1 poll tax. Naturalized citizens are still not eligible to vote or own property. Remember earlier, the naturalized citizens are those YT people. You see naturalized citizens, those are the YT immigrants in the 1790s. They still couldn't vote yet. And you're going to start seeing more and more legislation or things passed to begin to suppress African Americans' right to vote in the 1800s too. Outside of it, some on the plantation still being slaves. And this is prior to Juneteenth. This is prior to 1866. So Negroes are not even voting yet. Some are voting. Some are not voting. Watch this. 1848, Mexicans living in U.S. territory are declared citizens through the Treaty of Guadalupe, but are often discouraged from voting. Oh, so we ain't got to worry about the border situation. They've been had the right to vote in the first place. Those who were citizens. And if you're housed, you were a resident. So just by giving them a resident in America, they are automatically. Am I saying that right?
That's correct.
Yeah.
In 1856, the last state to abolish property qualification was North Carolina. Here's what I want to get to right here. This is an interesting guy coming up. In 1860, the tax-paying qualification remained in all 5 states: Massachusetts, Rhode Island, Pennsylvania, and Delaware. in North Carolina. They survived the Pennsylvania and Rhode Island until the 20th century, 1900s. And additional, many poor whites were later disenfranchised. One more time. In addition, many poor whites were disenfranchised. You don't see white people really getting a leg up until after the like the mid 1920s. Excuse me, when they set up what's called the YMCA for white youth, and I think welfare for white women, government
Mm.
assistance,
That
government
was
aid.
post war was going on. I
Hmm?
mean, you had the Great Depression, but following that was World War II, wasn't it? So I mean, they had to allow them to vote because they were going to war. Is that right? Is that the timeline? I mean, I'm probably getting ahead of you, but
Yeah, I
you
haven't
brought up
got that far yet.
1920, so I didn't know if okay, never mind.
No,
Yeah,
I was reading that last part where it says, in addition, many
we're
poor
about
white
80 years off from there.
many poor whites were disenfranchised. I was telling them then later they'll have the welfare program for white people later, and the YMCA for white youth later, because they need the assistance. They was eating, because of those wars you just mentioned, they were eating cabbage water and cornbread. It's
Well, what
disgusting.
about World War One? Does that? Well, I'll wait because I'm wondering how
Come
that
on,
plays
no, come
into
on,
it.
come on.
It's coming, so
We
Yeah,
haven't got
like
the Civil War yet.
I'm really more learning right now.
Yeah, we haven't hit the Civil War. Civil War just about to happen. Civil War. Y'all don't jump to the future.
Yeah, she got me interested now when you brought up
sorry.
World War II, the Great
What about
Depression.
Vietnam in the 70s?
I can't help myself.
The storm on Normandy. 1866, however, Wisconsin gives African American men the right to vote after Ezekiel Gillespie fights for the right to vote. This is an interesting brother, right? I've never heard this brother. In all the years I've been taught about voting, I never heard the situation. He went to court, Supreme Court actually, and won a Supreme Court case that African Americans do have the right to vote. So it makes you question the 15th Amendment because we haven't got to that quite yet.
I was just about to say that. Like, we
Makes you
haven't
have
fought the Civil War yet. I mean, not the Civil War, but the
Civil Rights Act hasn't happened either.
yeah, we haven't got that far yet.
None of that has
So
happened.
how
What
does
you
he
gonna-
hit the Supreme Court?
I'm gonna
And the
tell you what
Supreme
I
Court
observed.
ratifies his right to vote.
I'm gonna tell you what I observed. This is 1866, 1871. You have Hiram Revels, the first black senator of Mississippi. He was a free man. All free Negroes were voting through this whole time. This ain't nothing to do with all black people. That's false narrative. This is only dealing with Negroes who didn't have the kind of money to do it. You know what I'm saying? But this brother went to the Supreme Court, won the case in 66. The Civil War ends in 65. So this is post Civil War. And with that being said, I want to make a segue real quick and then bring it back over to you guys.
I was about to do that. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No. Go ahead.
You back share screen?
No. I don't know what I'm doing. I was about to mention Lena's, I hope I'm saying your name right, her comment. The black people that know should be ashamed of themselves to let this happen to their people. This is a solid thought. However, their people, a lot of those who were already ahead of the time of voting, already had their, rights or privileges rather. They didn't care. There was no their people, meaning because we look alike, we aren't the same people. So they took care of theirs just like it's happening today. They're going to take care of, he says caste, but, we may see a difference in race or them. I'm speaking of them, meaning people who have been voting for years. They're not worried about those who have been struggling back and forth with legislation and those who were happy to get stickers. Hell, Banana gets stickers, but they don't care about them.
That sounds so
about them. I mean,
that's how they see it. Though.
Produce.
But the way you said it,
but that's how they think of them. They're not worried about the. Like if we use adulting expression, they ain't worried about the people going to the peanut festival, bro. They
huh?
You know what I'm saying? They ain't worried about the fact.
Small world. But my point is I understand your sentiments, but their people is actually non-existent. And I mean, maybe to you and some people, yes, it's our people, but there are people who were in a certain caste or class. They took care of them.
It's tribal.
That class was people who had the same tax bracket as them, and that's still happening today. So
Oh yeah.
I just wanted
It's
to
even
acknowledge
it,
that.
I would say it's even older than that though. It precedes tax brackets. It's tribal. The nature of the world has always been tribal.
That's
And
true.
over here we've been uh confused about that. We try to identify with anyone who looks like us or even has a similar vibe to us. We try to identify with them, and it's like that's not the reality of the world though at all.
Psychonegrosis.
Like it's not. Nobody comes here and cares about you.
Psychonegrosis.
You know what I'm saying? Like it just doesn't work like that.
Like,
Yeah.
I swear, listen, hearing y'all talking about that's psychonegrosis. That's psychonegrosis. Psychonegrosis. That's exactly what it is. That's crazy. So I took a pause on the timeline to come to 1860s and 65 real quick. Just want to show you guys some check it out yourself. Go to Google, put in South Carolina under Negro government. It's called the prostrate states. A hard book title, The Prostrate States, South Carolina under Negro government. Let's go into it. I'm going to go to chapter 8 real quick. You can tell I've been reading this shit. Go right to it. So these are other sources I also look at, guys. I don't just look at Google. I actually look at literature. He's always on damn Google. Then if I feel like I'm gonna show you something to bust your bubble about the Ku Klux Klan. I think the Ku Klux Klan is demonized way beyond what they really are.
Joke.
I like what
you
the
gotta be
brother
careful.
just
You
said.
live in Alabama. You gotta be careful.
Well,
I like what the brother Alfonso just said. He said we don't have a complete identity. Black American culture, at least the culture that we're referring to right now, still is premature, which is why we see a lot of emotional adolescence in our approaches to a lot of things. It's literally that we don't have a cultural foundation that we can lean to that will mitigate those things. Like that'll take the place of emotions with an actual standard. You know what I mean? We don't have that right now. So when and that's one of the things, like to speak to the other point, I think it was Lena, or I can't remember her name, but they're not ashamed, and we only feel like they should be ashamed because we have a very emotional outlook on the world rather than a logistical, realistic one. Like they don't care about us, and we shouldn't even expect them to care about us, because that's just not the reality of the world. It's like expecting the lion to care for the deer because they live in the same area and have a similar coat. Like they're not the same. They just they just have the same color. Their nature isn't the same. Their way of thinking isn't the same. You know, all of that is different.
Damn. Well said, bro. So you think that applies to the vast majority of so-called Black people that feel that think that way, to where they can't culture identify with anybody? I mean, I think there's a subgroup of Black people that culture identify with what they are. Are you saying all?
Most?
No, I'll say most, though. That subculture that you're referring to is the group that keeps the others from being able to learn those types of things. Have an invested interest in keeping people from emotionally maturing and viewing the world as it is.
What do they gain from it, you think, though?
Control and status. Like the other person said, they get status, they get a bit of leeway to be able to move and navigate and never have to worry about sharing whatever it is that they've gained with the others. You don't have power unless you have acquisitions that others can't get easily.
Damn.
Can I paint a picture really quick? And I'm sorry. I'm gonna go left field a little bit.
Go.
Okay. I'm not sure how it relates, but something just popped in my mind. Okay. Old Testament. God was very brash, right? We'll say he would flood people out of where they lived. New Testament, it turned into, here's God, and now he's very loving and caring. So the difference in those two gods, and one or not, but if you have a group of people who are being, you mentioned this earlier, Jesus, you can't talk about Jesus because Jesus was a loving, he was God in the flesh. But let's talk about the God before that. How God would definitely run you out of the area where you live, and he'll say,
Set you on fire.
"You set you on fire, but you save this group right here, right?" And if you're disobedient, there's repercussions. There's two different gods right there, two different mindsets. So when we take away that brashness, and we're now the cuddly, and Jesus is speaking all, I don't know, rainbows and cushions and just very, you see what I'm saying? It's two different mindsets, if you will.
Yeah.
And if you take away that from a people, you know what I'm saying? Like I'm not trying to say what I'm trying to
If
say,
you
but
turn them, if you turn them into Care Bears, basically.
you turn them, thank you, into Care Bears. The whole mindset is so different because someone mentioned here, Elijah Muhammad said we have a baby mind. That used to be called moronic. That was a diagnosis called moronic. Moronic was a diagnosis.
Moron.
It still is.
It still is. But they
we
won't
just don't
diagnose
consider
you as
ourselves that way.
They won't. But they're amongst us. They're everywhere, whether they look like you or not. And I don't know where I was going with the whole Old Testament, New Testament, but I'm showing how there's two different dynamics of God.
You're making a great point.
There's a lot of dynamics of people because now we're showing the baby mindset that we have as a people. Anyway, sorry.
And no, you were making a great point with the Old Testament, New Testament. Even if you just go into the New Testament, they tricked you by. So you have the Jesus who's soft and cuddly, but then the same Jesus flips tables and builds a whip outside so he can hit people with it. Well, what happened to soft and cuddly?
Let me chime in because I mean to cut your wisdom, but both of y'all just said something that I'm like, I'm not sure what Jesus y'all talking about.
It's one.
But it's what I'm saying. So look, I'm gonna specify. So and it's the reason. It's really the way it's taught more than what it's actually saying, right? Sure. So you got the turn the other cheek, but the turn the other cheek isn't meant for everybody. It's literally meant for your brothers, the people who you already built a trust base with. But they don't teach you that way. They teach you to just accept and accept and accept and accept and accept whatever. But then that doesn't mesh well with the Jesus who sat outside and made a whip to go in and beat the people out of the temple who was acting the ass inside the temple, right? So those two things don't mesh. The same Jesus that called a woman a dog for trying to come up to him from the wrong family. I mean, but they only teach the side of it to make you perceive yourself as to be the type of person to accept whatever from whoever, as long as you get a reward at the end of something. And that makes you moronic because the world just doesn't work like that.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying?
Just for the record, for the audience, I'm with the Jesus of Matthew 10 when he said this shit right here. Don't think that I came to bring peace.
Facts. They don't teach it like that.
Though. Don't play with me.
Yeah,
they don't. And that's the fact of it. That's the real of it.
All.
Yeah, that's the real of it. They just don't teach it like that. They teach it like you should be a Buddhist, but they don't teach you that the Buddhists got dominated by the Han and now they're just a tourist attraction. You know what I'm saying? It's just the reality of the world is not simple.
Great point. Let's look at where's the article come from right here? This is a good article right here as well. I'm gonna go back. I can't go back. Can I go back? It's from the somethingmuseum.org. It's a .org website. It's a credible source. Is a credible source. Uncharted Truth. You got all your degrees. Do you know? Is this a credible site or not?
Proceed.
Is it fake news? This is not fake news. No racial requirement. And I saw this article. I'm like, well, damn, they're making us think. What Biden told Charlemagne, if you don't vote for me, you ain't black. What are they talking about with Kamala? Is she black? Obama, is he black? Bill Clinton, he black. I mean, come on. It's like the voters favored the color narrative. There was a time when it wasn't even the case. Free voters of color in New Jersey. There was only 3 states in the Constitution from the 1776 to 1790 Constitution. Didn't know that. Georgia until 1789, and then the Carolinas and Virginia. That defined voters as white. By 1807, Delaware, Maryland, Ohio, and New Jersey were added to the list. Between 1776 and 1807, New Jersey's state constitution used the gender-neutral pronoun.
All that.
Between 1776, this ain't nothing new. Them and they, us and them, he and whatever. It's not new. To use the pronoun, they did not include racial categories in its elections. So up until 1807, there was no such thing as Negroes being excluded from voting. I don't want you guys thinking that this was like a American pastime thing, that we were just these dumb bumpkins who couldn't read or write and just pick cotton all day and couldn't vote. That's the imaginative part of this story that they try to paint.
Mhm.
This opened the electoral to any man or woman, black or white, that could meet the property resident and the age requirement, the property residency and the age requirements. Anybody. What happened in 1808? International law said no more importation of Africans. Are y'all stopping the immigration of Africans, but y'all gonna start some Europeans coming over here again? Pretty much. Don't bring them more than over here. That's the 1808 international trade laws. They banned the importation of Negroes. Kind of like the thing they do with the Haitians in Florida. If you're Haitian, they send you back. But if you Cuban or Puerto Rican or something like that, Puerto Rican, Lord have mercy, excuse me. If you Cuban, that was racist. If you, because I was studying the conquistadors earlier, and they all the same people. The Cubans and Dominicans. Cubans and Dominicans have what's called a wet foot, dry foot clause. You heard of that?
Mm-hmm.
They can stay over here pretty much.
Yeah.
Okay. Free people of African descent has a whole other meaning for me right now. That has a whole other meaning for me. The free people of African descent is a whole other group of people I just learned. Anyway, free people of African descent could and did vote in New Jersey before 1807. Poll lists, however, rarely recorded whether a voter was black or white. They have no idea who was who. In fact, the only one of the 9 to know is pre-1807 was New Jersey. Poll list discovered by a museum explicitly identifies a black voter, Ephraim Hargeman, along with the brother we just seen earlier who got the right to vote out of Wisconsin, I think it was. Why have we never heard these people when it comes to voting? Why would they make it look like Martin Luther King and the civil rights was like the dawn of voting for black people? Like we just started voting. I told you the little group of old black people, they part of that gatekeeper shit too, though.
Yeah, because they needed that silent photo, man. That's why. That silent photo I told y'all about earlier.
I don't care. Go tell your grandma. Oh, yeah, tell your grandma.
That's what they needed. And for everybody in the chat, man, I want y'all to take a second at some point today or tomorrow. Go look up the picture of Martin Luther King, right? His assassination. But I need you to be able to see the downstairs, not just the balcony. Be able to see the downstairs. And when you're looking at this picture, tell me if anybody downstairs looked like they heard a gunshot. One, much less more than one. If anyone, see, I just want y'all to look that up. See, that's why they had stuff like that. The cyclic style of leadership is set up to drive the minds of people. And the more pictures and video you get, the worse it's going to get. It's going to get in where AI going to make it damn near impossible the way people look.
Let me tell you, I think Judge Joe Brown put me on so much game about the King joint and Dick Gregory.
Yeah, the ones who know. And that's another thing. Those people come out. I don't know this for certain. This is just my theory. But the people who are allowed to talk about it are told to talk about it. They ain't no different than the other ones. They just give you a little piece.
We ain't got no hope. Roar. Okay, so this young man right here was a tax list from 1790s confirmed that Hargeman was a free person of color. In the 1790s, free person of color was a thing. In the 1890s, people of color were free. 1840s, niggas were free. Niggas been free the whole time over here. They don't report to you guys the dudes in the chain gangs. And even they were just working on a bond. But they also showed the value of his property and does not appear to have met the 50-pound property requirement needed to vote. It is possible that his payment of taxes, regardless of his value of his property, qualify him to vote. Anthony Johnson was in the same situation, remember? While no other black voters were specifically identified by their race on surviving pre-1807 polls, their racial identity can be confirmed when comparing their names and other primary sources documents, such as the tax list. For example, the man named Thomas Blue voted in the same 1801 Montgomery Township election of Ephraim Hagerman. Montgomery Township. The only Thompson Blue that appeared in the township tax was listed from surrounding 1801 was a free black man named Thompson Blue who had been formerly enslaved by Michael Blue, B-L-E-W. Look how those names just changed like that. You could never find your cousins with that kind of shit going on. You would never knew where the names changed at. We need Kenneth Owens on this. A former Dutch descendant of Bloemenburg, Somersault County, and Montgomery Township lists 1802 Thompson Blue as a black with Negro next to his name. When you were doing your family tracery, did you look at any voting?
Yeah.
Voting receipts and stuff like that?
Mm-hmm.
Were they registered?
They existed. From 1880 to 1920, it was Democrat. Then from 1920 till I don't remember when. After that, it went Republican.
Republican after the 1800s?
After 1920.
Oh, wow.
I know.
Wow.
That was my great-grandfather was mayor of the town, Slocum, that we're from. His father was the one who went Republican. Yeah.
And this is in the early 1900s.
Before that, it was Democrat.
Do you know anything about the shift in the politics that might have caused that at that time?
Well, again, this is small town Slocum. Slocum is a 2,000 population, so I'm sure it was smaller back then. So I don't really know where he got the influence from. I have no idea. My grandfather, I know where his influence came from. That was more so of, he was in the military, landowner, farmer. So I can understand his reasoning. But even my grandfather, great-grandfather, he also was a landowner. They were all farmers. So farmers in Alabama, if you're Republican, of course, you're, I guess, taken care of in that regard. Like, they had their homestead. They follow through on that stuff. So, again, this is all me shooting from the hip of like what I'm observing with my family. But before that, it was Democrat, as per the census.
Okay, I was just curious.
I'm sorry.
I said I was just curious.
Now, 1860s to 1868. Now we're probably about 100 years away from the 1960s, voting right legislation and civil rights and shit like that. So again, I wanted to know, like, how do we go from where we are here? In the 1860s, Hiram Revels and several other black people are going to rise to positions of senator and mayor, like she just expressed mayor and other political seats. You saw the book I had up called the Prostrate States of South Carolina. The entire state of South Carolina was ruled by Negroes, and that's what caused the Reconstruction to happen post-Civil War. Post-Civil War, the population of white males were devastatingly low. Like, it was super low. It was already low in the first place. So from the end of Civil War, which was the bloodiest wars as it pertained to white men being slaughtered in America, between 1866 to 1922, it was the most prosperous time frame for so-called Negroes and the poorest time frame for what we call American white people. It was just a horrible time for them. World War I happened shortly. You got to think, 1866, we're just Southern Confederate.
Yeah.
White people are still trying to recover. On top of that, they gave their land away to all these Negroes for 1 year until what's his name came in office. Andrew Johnson reversed that situation and gave land back to those white people. Cotton was the only thing that saved those white people. The fact of the industry of cotton, but the second Great Migration devastated the labor pool in the South because a lot of Negroes left and went north in the 1920s. Shortly after that, the Roaring 20s in New York, the Harlem Renaissance, Negroes were doing great. Black Wall Street, Tulsa, Oklahoma, which was rebuilt, by the way. Y'all keep saying like it was never rebuilt. It was rebuilt. Gentrification destroyed the second time. Go look it up. You had other Black populous cities who were thriving, doing great. Mm-hmm. This is pre-integration, by the way. I'm gonna try to show you how the late 50s, early 60s, how integration, NAACP, and those Black gatekeepers flipped the script and integrated unarmed, uneducated Negro population into the white male power structure, and it was over from there. That's just what it is. That's just the squeaky clean down and dirty version of it. In 68, citizenship is guaranteed to all male persons born or naturalized in the United States by the 14th Amendment. Do y'all know what that is? The 14th Amendment. We know what the 13th Amendment is.
I have no idea what just happened. Sorry.
Yeah, okay. November 3rd, the rights of African American men to vote in Iowa was approved through a voter referendum. So each of these new states that are coming on alongside for the greater good of the United States of America, they're determining when their Negroes get the right to vote. This is way before the Civil Rights Act of 1964. Women in Wyoming gets equal suffrage rights. It doesn't say white or Black women at this point in time. The fact that our Black women got involved in the women's right movement is crazy. The 15th Amendment in the United States prevents the states from denying right to vote on the grounds of race, color, or previous condition. When did the racism start? But see, they also added or previous conditions of what? Servitude. Because remember those white people earlier who still couldn't vote? This is now going to give them the right to vote here in a second. And this is going to flip the table when those lower class white people get the right to vote and they feel privileged to vote. This is where things like the Ku Klux Klan start to happen, and a lot of disenfranchising at local polls start to happen from these white people. Like they basically gassed them up. When I say they, like the government gassed them up to think that you're better than these Negroes. Disenfranchisement after the Reconstruction began for the former Confederate states. They passed Jim Crow laws and amended effectively disenfranchising African Americans and poor whites. Y'all see that? Mm-hmm. One more time. Jim Crow laws and amendments to effectively disenfranchise African Americans and poor whites.
Yeah,
polling tax, grandfather clause, and other restrictions.
The imagination is what set people apart from reality.
Why did we exclude the white people? They struggled through the same shit that we did.
It was someone else's imagination because we're a visual people. We're visual creatures. So when they said we're going to feed them these television lies, these lies that we have on the screen, they will never ever show you a white person struggling. Ever.
But
come on.
Great. Why are they teaching us that this Jim Crow shit only affected Negroes?
The divide, man. You divide.
You see how we just learned this through black and white. We're reading it. Wow. Imagine if we read it versus what we saw. Our imagination is what separates us from reality. And now,
and so, unfortunately, some people don't ever bridge that gap.
We're about to also lose ownership, meaning of our right to even fact check, the right to set records, because those are about to be lost. These types of things are about to be information is about to be turned over to artificial information. So once those records are lost, just saying, it's coming, it's happening.
It's OVA.
Yeah, it's already happening. Yeah, the one drawback of the internet and access to information is it's also access to misinformation. So I can easily have you spun up and arguing over stuff that's not even relevant.
Exactly.
Yeah, we had that conversation a couple of days ago about this podcast I went on, how they was just arguing what they imagine things to be and not what they really are. So you're absolutely right about that. But nevertheless, Jim Crow also affected YT people also, despite of the contrary belief it only affected us for a reason. Applied in discrimination manner. During this time period, the Supreme Court generally upheld states' efforts to discriminate against racial minorities only in the later 20th century, where these laws ruled unconstitutional. Black males in northern states could vote, but the majority of African Americans lived in the South. That was a problem. So this wasn't even affecting America. This is affecting a couple states, mainly the southern states, who still were a little bit pissy after the Civil War. They was under black rulership of black prostate states. So they would do things like add a literacy test. Now, literacy test wasn't for the rich black folks who were paying to vote. This for the newly freed slaves who were not educated in their system yet, so they didn't know an I from a J or a Y from a vowel or pretty much nothing. So we're pretty much in that same cycle now where the majority of young black folks are not as educated, and they're tracking education to the point if they feel like your child is not going to do well by the 8th grade, they fast track them to the prison pipeline system. They already know they're not going to be a contributor to society. And then the top 10 smart black folks, that's where the people like the Boule societies come in and put them in those other fraternities, sororities, and keep them away from the not so smart black people to never educate them again. You notice people from the hood go to college, they might pledge, they'll never come back to the neighborhood, especially after they, people die, grandma, mama pass away. They never come back to the city anymore. They might drive through it for some reason, but they never come back to try to grab other young black people and say, hey, listen, I went to college and became an engineer. Let me give you some game on, blah, 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 because that's how most people do it in the community. They give back to their community. We run from our community and never come back because it's a taught behavior. Like, now go join their community now. You can now afford a house in their community.
Yeah, we don't even hit the middle ground, like, and build our own community. We literally leave and add all of our assets and mental resources to somebody else's community.
That shit is crazy, bro. Now, here's what's crazy too. By 1876, Native Americans are ruled non-citizens and ineligible to vote Supreme Court of the United States. Virginia amends their constitution, including a poll tax now. So you got to pay poll taxes in Virginia at this point. But the civil rights of 1962, I think it was Native American civil rights also. But there are no Indians out there marching with Dr. King or going across that bridge or getting bit by dogs, their water hose. You don't see them at all. So I was like, who are they talking about? Who could it be talking about? Somebody help me. In 87, citizenship was granted to Native Americans who were willing to disassociate themselves from their tribe by the Dawes Act. Y'all know about the Dawes Roll. Now, not only are we going to naturalize ourselves and denationalize y'all, we're going to switch roles with everybody. Who wants to be a citizen? They're dangling over their head. I want to be a citizen. Okay, you got to take off your garments and put on this shirt. No, break the TP down. Break that shit down. Go live in the house now.
Yeah, and at the same time, there was conducting Indian schools for the white ones.
Assimilation schools. One of the first ones was Hampton University.
Yeah, to teach them how to be natives, while you get the natives, the actual natives, to turn away from their culture. Which is interesting earlier that you read about how the Northern Territories were still held by Native Americans. At the same time as this was happening, there was right to vote up there, but that was before the migration going up north. So why would there have been black right to vote in the first place if there was no migration? Who was black?
Great point. Great fucking point. So this timeline goes all the way to the 1920s, and what's going to happen basically, coming out of slavery or supposed slavery, post Reconstruction era, a few political parties are going to start up. You have the Whigamores who were there, and you got the Demo Party starts out of Tennessee, which becomes the Democratic National Party. At one point, we had Democratic National Republic Party, which was a joint venture in my mind, but Same birds are the same wings of the same fucking bird. But then you start to see other liberalist movements and ideologies come out of America. The women's suffrage movement, the white suffrage movement still happened. The black suffrage movement hasn't happened yet, but the black suffrage movement is about to happen. And out of the black suffrage movement, we're going to start seeing organizational lobbyists. We're going to start seeing lobbying around the ideas of these polo black folks. Polo black folks. They need some help, y'all. Go help them. 1849. Help us, we poor.
I'm wearing that shirt. Did you notice?
Yeah. Help me, I'm poor. Help us, we poor.
Oh, excuse me.
Which is still I'm flabbergasted because you guys know that there was a Freedmen's Bank prior to this, right? It had millions of dollars in it. So I'm like, why does it seem like these poor black folks are so disenfranchised financially? Because it wasn't about financial. Black folks had plenty of land and there was a majority of property owners. There was a problem. Why those white males were not getting to the polls quick enough because they were not allowed to vote due to the fact that all the Negroes owned the land. There was no land left for the people to get. 1849, African-American suffrage was technically approved in the referendum in Wisconsin. However, due to technicality, where non-voting citizens were counted as no vote, the result was widely considered a fail, meaning black men did not gain the right to vote in the state at the time. This issue was later settled in court. The court case, Glipsy versus Palmer, which ultimately ruled that black men did have the right, black men, Kamala, black men, Barack, all y'all, black men been having the right to vote. Did have the right to vote. This is a Supreme Court case. The key points of this event, the situation primarily occurred in Wisconsin. This was Wisconsin situation. It's state by state, by the way. Same legal battle I showed you the brother earlier. The courts decided to invalidate the ban on black voting and confirmed the suffrage had been legally extended to black men in 1849. For 17 years, black men in Wisconsin were barred from the ballot box, and their disenfranchisement excluded them from shaping the state's first public institutions. When it comes to black, Negro, and colored, according to social science and political science, they're going to be the two main areas of suffrage for so-called black people or people of color. People with nationality don't really deal with this shit. It's only when America goes to those countries and try to implement a democracy other than what that country already is used to. You don't see these problems happening. During the 19th and 20th century, black women played an active role in the struggle for universal suffrage. They participated in political meetings and organized political societies. Here we go. In the 20th century, black women played an active role in struggling for universal suffrage. They're trying to assimilate the whole world. Look at us. That's that groupism Greg mentioned earlier. If we can find everybody to think the same way we think, we probably can get something going. They participate in political meetings in organized political societies. Those are the Freemasons. Those are the Methodist Baptist Church. Those are the Alphas, the Kappas, the Omegas. Those are all those organizations, Eastern Stars.
And they get stuff done.
African-American women attended political conventions at their local church. I told you the church was huge. That's why they go to the church now. That's why Kamala was at Jamal's church down in Atlanta.
That's what that mean. The organizations go to the church too, even though like the sororities, fraternities, they're
that whole crowd was AKAs.
Exactly. They're polar opposites, but they still use the church.
That's
church
why
is your foundation.
This is what it's telling you. Like this is what was happening. This will still happen to this day. So you see Ricky Smiley, Steve Harvey, what's his name? D.L. Hughley. Those are all Omegas, Omega Psi Phi, Fraternity Incorporated. Of course, they're going to be on the same page. That's what the organization is pushing.
Exactly. And they get paid kickbacks to do that. Like, you got to get down or get left behind. And you don't want to be out here with the Help Me Poor shirt on with the rest of it.
He said, Help Me Poor shirt on.
They help me on pull that, you know what I'm saying? So they're going to do what they do.
That's fucking hilarious. So that's pretty much the timeline of it. This is the timeline events leading to civil war, because I think this is important too, because all the voting legislation and the voting rights of so-called Negroes, and now we're about to let these Negroes free. The biggest concern was these are now going to become voting citizens. These people now can vote. This scared the YT people of America shitless. You were the vast majority. You held the political seats. We had the political power and the financial power. All of it. You guys want to add anything before I go through this?
No.
The timeline of events leading to the American Civil War. The Civil War was a very pivotal point, and it had a direct tie to voting legislation, how many Negroes were being counted. Unfortunately, what we call slavery, which is just in-depth bondage, was also a big thing too in America. The timeline of events leading to the American Civil War is a chronological order list of events and issues that historically recognize the origin and cause. This is Fort Sumter. Fort Sumter was overran by Southerners, and they surrendered Fort Sumter. United States surrendered Fort Sumter to Confederate forces, and that kicked off the Civil War, along with the Battle of the Monitor and the Merrimack, and so on and so forth. These events are roughly divided into two periods. The first encompassed gradual buildup over many decades. This is the cause of the Civil War. What's the cause of the Civil War? Slavery. No, idiot. The first encompassed gradual buildup over many decades in numerous social, economical, and political issues, aka Negroes, aka Black folks, aka Negro, colored, Black, all means death when it comes to social and political science. The ultimately contributed to the war's outbreak in the second encompass in the 5-month span following the election of Lincoln as president of the United States were in 1860, accumulating in the capture of Fort Sumter in 61. You know what's so amazing about the story with Lincoln? Lincoln was actually defending a big court case dealing with the Moors. You guys know about that court case? Well,
No.
They were trying to call the Moors black,
Okay.
and Lincoln went to court and basically was like, they're not black, they're Moors. Like, no, they're not Negroes. These are not Negroes, it's surely Moors. So it's a big court case before he got elected that Lincoln was defending the nationality status of those Moors.
In the 1860s, like they've been here though. Why? I don't know. Maybe I'm.
No, I mean, let's just skim it. Why the fuck not?
Sorry.
No, you can't be sorry. Let's just skim it because I'm slightly interested now.
Good. I don't feel as bad then.
I want, but see, the part that fucked me up when you said they've been here. I don't think the audience even caught what you said.
I'm saying the people before Abe, like, why is it him that's dealing with, hey, identifying these people? You know what I'm saying?
Oh, yeah, for sure. So this court case, I actually pulled up the goddamn manuscript. This is crazy. The actual court document. No, it's not the court document. It's a PDF though. Coming from like a PDF. A little bit. It says Abraham Lincoln, the title. Abraham Lincoln representing a Moor prior to presidency. Abraham Lincoln representing a Moor prior to presidency, and making this distinction between Moor and Negro. The full description. Abraham Lincoln represented a Moor prior to his presidency and making a distinction between a Moor and a Negro. A Moor has a nationality. The Negro is a fictional law and stateless person, a refugee with no constitutional rights, enforcement, or protection. That what was Lincoln was arguing. That was his court case, y'all. Literally what Noble Drew Ali said. Fucking beat him. Lincoln says the Negro is a fictional of law, a stateless person, a refugee with no constitutional right. A Moor has a nationality. This is a PDF from PDF text, all rights reserved. Original title: Abraham Lincoln representing the Moor prior to presidency.
Thanks for sharing that reference.
Oh yeah, I mean, I want to use some credible sources along my Google search. There you got scholars out there now. August 1851, William Dungy. I know a couple of Dungies up in Virginia too. That's crazy. A dark-skinned young man of Portuguese descent. Oh God, I don't even want to go into that. Married Joseph Spencer's sister. A family quarrel ensued. I'm right here, which became so bitter. January 1855, Spencer claimed throughout the community that his brother-in-law, Black Bill, was a Negro. Since 1819, Illinois laws permitted quasi-slavery and restricted the immigration of free blacks into the state. As other northern states passed personal liberty laws granting additional rights to free blacks, Illinois toughened its stance against them. Shouts out to Chicago. The 1848 Illinois Constitution required a General Assembly to pass such laws as will effectively prohibit free persons of color from immigrating and selling in this state. The prohibition was passed as black laws and went into effect February 12, 1853, in the further emancipator's 44th birthday. Wow. William Dungy faced losing not only his reputation, but his marriage, property, and the right to remain in Illinois. Section 10 of the 1853 law stated every person who shall have 1/4 Negro blood should be deemed mulatto. William Dungy retained Abraham Lincoln to quash. That's when you don't have to go to court at all. You quash it out of court. It's called quash. Quash the possibilities that might be judged as a Negro, therefore suffer the severe penalty under 1853 Act. This brother is fighting not to be called Negro. We be throwing that word around like it's hot potato. This brother was going to court not to be called a Negro because he was Moor, and they was confusing the Moors with the Negroes because of their dark skin.
You could do that today. If I were to go for a new employment and I put on my, application that I was white, I could sue someone if they changed it to black because they're making an assumption of my race, and that's my privilege to do, even though it's not real. But I would never do that anyway. But
wow, I didn't know that.
It's suable. Yeah.
I didn't know that. So, without wasting the time to open this document, I'm not going to do all that. This is the actual document. If you want me to, I can email you this document. It's called Abraham Lincoln Representing the Moor Prior to His Presidency. Basically, again, the Moor knew he wasn't a Negro, and ascertained the defense of Abraham Lincoln, who was a lawyer at the time, and got it quashed, overturned the case, and he was not known a Negro. He was a Moor. Moors in court, even back then. Moors in court. Paper piracy. So I think we hit about everything I wanted to hit on. Let's go to the civil rights of 1964.
Can we touch on something someone said a while ago?
Sure.
Shoot, where'd it go? He said something about citizens. Let's see, where is it at? Okay, a lot's been said since then, I guess. Sorry, if I can't find it, then I'll disregard.
What was it saying?
African Americans can never be citizens. Oh, there it is. Okay, yeah. Mr. Yashe, is it Yashe? Elbe, African Americans can and never be a citizen in that case. I forgot what case that you were talking about. And
that was the Dred Scott case.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, it was overturned later.
Okay, then I won't go into that. But I was just going to go into the actual definition of a citizen, and actually that applies to all people who think they're citizens. But
and to be a citizen, it's just saying you're a member of a
political
society,
community.
right? Yeah,
Political
you're a member of a political community, whether it's alphabet community or whether it's the Negro community or whatever community you're part of. Make sure you're a citizen. I know what he was trying to say, but that was under the Dred Scott case. That was unfortunately overturned later. So that got changed. Yes, Dred Scott was that did get said in this court case. Black suffrage in Pennsylvania and NAACP, the civil rights movement. This stuff comes out of what's called the Black suffrage movement. which you had a group of black people feel like they were speaking for the entirety of everybody. You got black people who were in Alabama, Mississippi during the time of the march that never even went out there. Like, I'm not going that shit.
Right.
Am I lying? Like, it didn't even
Right.
didn't even participate.
The majority.
Right.
Thank you. The majority.
A good percentage, yeah.
They participate, but
Yeah.
the propaganda, like you said earlier, Greg, like the way they do the staging of everything.
That's all it is. That's all it is a stage. We already knew this.
And if you go back and look at it now, it's poorly written.
It is.
It's poorly acted.
It's poorly acted.
The props are horrible. But it worked for that time though. Like, it worked. It had your grandma them believing that shit.
I mean, it's in black and white. It's easy to, manipulate.
And I could not believe. I said, why would they do that?
That's part of it.
Why would they? Television's a part of psyops, man. I'm telling you. The fact they brought TVs out, they were able to do. It became much less easier.
Yeah.
To do a lot of this crap, man. It's crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Listen to this real quick. Prior to the early 1800s, wealthy African American men in Pennsylvania could vote, just as their rich European American male counterparts could. However, voting rights were expanded to include poor European men. Oh,
that was swarthy people too, wasn't it?
Mulattoes, swarthy people, vagabonds.
Yeah. They're not saying a nation, but they're saying a portion of the nation or of nations.
Crazy. And a shift that began to move away from societal stratified by wealth. I told y'all they're gonna go away from a caste system to the class system. Watch this. So that they're now moving away from the wealth idea to one which is now based on race. Black wealthy men are now no longer allowed to vote. What? This page covers the context and the gradual decline in the rights for African American, which cumulatively in the loss of their voting rights, and as well as the effect on their surrounding societies and result in political climate, as well as the revolt from Black communities. Black rich people were allowed to vote right along their white counterparts. And I do mean counterparts. They're in cahoots. The voter suppression laws affected them. So now they got to come get the poor Black people. Hey, come with us so we can. And our little dumb Black ass asking about vote for who? It don't matter. Just vote for the person we tell you to vote for. They gonna help us out? Yeah. They got you. We're gonna see to it they take care of y'all. Nigga. Y'all drunk the Kool-Aid. Context. 19th century fundamental period of understanding the shift from deeper racial consciousness away from previous emphasis on social class of people. During the 1830s, Pennsylvania anti-slavery movement underwent drastic transition with a large influx of non-Quakers, coinciding with the increasing of radicalization, which is a process individuals or groups comes to adopt increasingly radical views in opposition to the political, social, and religious status quo. The ideas of society at large shape the outcome of, basically, they're all getting together. These are your liberals, the Quakers, the abolitionist movements, all these movements, who today we call them white liberals. They have always been the ones behind pushing the Black narrative and the Black agenda. Black people have never had an agenda when it comes to politics. There's never been like a right. National agreed upon agenda. This is how we're gonna move. This is what we want. The niggas in California want the same thing they want in goddamn Dalton. We all agreed. Compton to Dalton, we want the same thing.
You still aren't saying it right. It's cracking me up.
We have the same suffrage. Tired of seeing our Black babies get shot in the streets and get mistreated in classrooms. We're sick of it.
It's like
go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Greg.
It's like this cyclic ruling style. Almost, it's ancient though. It's almost as if multiple ruling families
Roman
put
law.
all of their different strategies that worked together and and threw it together in America as a social experiment.
That's
I can't agree with you more, bro. Like,
Yeah.
that's exactly what fucking happened. All right, I'm fucking up. There we go. All right, we're still in Pennsylvania.
Go back
Go ahead.
to you're about to go into the prior to 1838. I want you to read that part, please. Go back up a little bit more.
Where? Right here?
A little bit down.
Okay.
Context right there. Yeah.
Prior to 1838, Pennsylvania Constitutional Convention, the Pennsylvania Constitution state that in elections of citizens, every freeman shall enjoy the rights of an elector. The problem, as often is with the Constitution, was that there were varying interpretations of this. Hold on, let me read that again. I fucked that up. In 38, Pennsylvania Constitutional Convention states that in election of the citizen, every freeman shall enjoy the rights to elector. That's everybody. That's both white and black. Every freeman, right?
Enjoy the rights of an elector. So it's not even their rights; it's the rights of an elector. That's tying into what's going on today.
Electoral college?
That's what's happening tomorrow. Enjoy the rights of your elector. Whoever it is you vote on. Alabama gets 9 of those, but enjoy the rights of them. So
man.
Yeah. The problem, as often is with constitutions, was that there was varying interpretations of this. And it still is. I don't know how to interpret that, but the elector does. They know exactly what this means.
Why aren't they telling people this?
No,
It's right there.
You get to enjoy the
magic ain't
right of your elector.
magic ain't magic without an illusion.
Bro.
It's all in your imagination. Like I
How
said,
many of y'all in
everyone
the chat
gets
knew
stickers.
this?
Everyone gets stickers. Bananas, apples, and people.
Everybody gets stickers, even damn bananas.
Everybody.
Come on, y'all. How many of y'all in the chat knew this shit? This is crazy.
Yeah.
Now, what they're riding on is the fact that Kamala will win the popular vote. Let's remember, Hillary Clinton won the popular vote and still lost, and she was way more qualified than Kamala. Okay, so let's not go there with the popular vote shit. It's the electoral votes. That's crazy. Most white men interpreted this as meaning that only free white men. Why would there need to be a need for the term free white man? Were you guys ever enslaved in the first place? Why would there need to be any clarity about free white man? Were you guys ever not free white man? Yeah. And non-property owners too, by the way.
Yeah.
But black people were property owners and free and had money. They overqualified. You see up top right here. Let me go back over here. I'm sorry. Prior to the 1800s, wealthy African Americans in Pennsylvania could vote, just as their rich European. We got called wealthy. They got called rich. Pay attention to that. As their rich counterparts. However, voting rights were expanded to include the European men. They expanded the voting rights. But then white people looking
now
like,
it's the opposite. Now it's the exact opposite because wealth is more than riches.
Right. So now we understand that these wealthy Negroes who we were talking about earlier had to come alongside and get their poor blacks to also do the same thing that the rich whites were doing with the poor whites. The rich white people started becoming cognitive that we'll have more voting power if we expand some of this legislation and policy to include the poor white man and the black man. Like, wait a minute. What about our poor black people? Figure it out. And that's what happens.
Yeah.
We're at the bottom of the damn pyramid. These rich white and black people are playing y'all with like chess pieces. Go ahead. The 1838 convention was held with its original primary goal of reforming taxes and ownership, restriction placed on suffrage in order to enable the impoverished citizens of Pennsylvania to vote. However, Due to the instant political turmoil, targets towards Black Philadelphians, thousands of white citizens petitioned the convention to restrict suffrage to whites. They took your fucking movement. They hijacked your movement and said, no, we are poorer than them. On January 20th, 1838, their wishes were granted as the Constitution was amended to be restricted to white freemen. What about the Black freemen? Oh, don't worry about them. Us, we now have the right to vote because we haven't had a right to vote in so long. We couldn't vote because these rich Negroes had all the land and they were landowners and they qualified.
Please keep reading this because you're going to, like, mine's going to blow up.
Go ahead.
No, keep reading.
Oh, I'm coming.
I'm sorry.
No, I know you read ahead. It's okay.
Sorry.
John Z. Ross tried to justify the convention's actions in official statement by proposing that although all men are free and equal, this does not apply to Black citizens in the political sense. Only in the sense of nature. He argued that this is what is best for the community, security and happiness, and further added that Black men should not be able to vote, as he did not believe that they have the conception of civil liberty. Thank y'all for coming out. God bless you. Good night. That's why y'all niggas can't vote.
That's wild.
What?
Do not believe that they have any conceptions of civil liberty.
What is a civil liberty?
Tap on it. Just click. Yeah. Thank you.
Civil liberties are guarantees and freedoms that governments commit not to abridge either by constitutions, legislation, or judicial interpretation without due process. Though the scope of the term differs between countries, civil liberties may include the freedoms of consciousness, freedom of press, some other shit going on right here. I'm interested now. Now I want to see what this is. All these freedoms are liberties: freedom of consciousness, how to think; freedom of the press; freedom of religion; freedom of expression; freedom to assemble, and the right to secure liberty; freedom of speech; right to privacy; equal treatment under the law; right to a fair trial; rights of life. Other civil liberties include right to own property, right to defend yourself, and the right to bodily integrity. Within the distinctions between civil liberties and other types of liberties, distinctions exist between positive liberties, positive rights, negative liberties, and negative rights. What is a positive right? Negative and positive rights are rights that oblige either inaction or action. These obligations may be of either legal or moral character. The notion of positive and negative rights also apply to rights of something, liberal rights of something.
It's basically saying that us
Never heard of that.
folk have no conception of any of this, no understanding. So therefore, no, it's just off. So go back a little bit. Go push your back button, because I want to go back to that whole statement. Yes. So it's saying that person believed that they did not have the conception of that whole definition you just gave as a people collectively.
Because I was struggling to keep up with what they were saying.
I know it was a lot.
Yeah,
I'm not even gonna hold you. Like,
they didn't lie.
Like, somebody got to help break that shit down for me. Like, no, what is it? I've never heard of that. You saying that we don't have the concept of that?
The concept of that.
Yeah, we don't.
You can't conceptualize that.
It was not even just saying. It's saying that we don't know it, but we don't have the mental capacity to know it, even if we're told it.
Now, listen to this. Go into eugenics in this time frame.
Yeah. Well,
they studied that our race was of the moronic, or had moronic traits, meaning the emotional intelligence of a 12-year-old. No intellect, intelligence of an adult as a whole. That was what they were saying back then. Or that's, if you look up in the DSM 5 or 6, whatever, you'll see that definition of moronic, and it's a diagnosis. And this is basically the same time frame of when they're saying that as a people. And it wasn't even just us; it was a lot, like white, black included. But they did not have the mental capacity to conceptualize liberties and civil and criminal and all of that. So they had to be governed. So government has come in because they're no longer self-governed.
Think of it as a relationship between prey and predator. How a tiger would look at a deer. You know what I mean? It's like the deer all nice and chill. It don't get that I'm about to maul it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That shit hurt my feelings.
Yeah, but there's the difference in thinking. Like we are moronic in a state, but we also are just a people that are less predatory, but that's dangerous. You got to have both sides.
Let me see. I'm pull it up.
My feelings are hurt.
There's a philosopher by the name Immanuel Kant. I brought this up during our last live together. Immanuel Kant was a philosopher in the 1790s, and he traveled a lot of places. And one of the things he noticed between people, and that was your Native Americans and we'll say African Americans, people from all over, the ones that have dark complexions or dark pigmented people, he said that they never had to go after something. Like they never had to, it was always there, meaning their resources always there. They're very resourceful, if you will. White people always had to hunt. They had to be very stealthy. They had to always work. They always had to earn, if you will. So he compared how black people are going to be very docile because that's not their nature to go out and kill and hunt because they don't have to. So overall, he was philosophizing. I probably messed that word up. That there should be a universal law based on a community of people, meaning people who don't act like a white person have these laws. So it was more so of segmenting communities, and they have their own law based on their religion, which we already kind of have this, but we don't. So. Sorry, that was pretty long to get.
That's actually wild, though, that you say that. I was having this conversation with my wife and another person, and like when they was always talking about how white people supposed to come from cavemen, and we was building pyramids. I was like, you have no concept of what it would take to survive in conditions like that. Mm-hmm. If you truly had to live in a cave and outside was -20, you had to figure out how to get out there, dress yourself to get out there and get something close before you succumb to the elements, then be able to go out further, then be able to come in, burn something in a space where the wind and all of that doesn't get rid of it, but you also ain't so deep in that you don't smoke yourself out. It's like the concept of having to survive that would make you vicious.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's true. That's true.
Like, so that's not the flex that you think it is. If you're saying that they're inferior to you because of this, it's like you're really underestimating your foe, if that's the case.
Hope Owens L says we really need to learn law and civics. Yes, ma'am.
Absolutely. And see, this is my complaint. Hold on, bro. I'm pushing me. This was my complaint when I was in the Moore Science Temple, because I'm like, no disrespect to the Prophet 101s and Circle 7. Why aren't we learning remedies? I just read in history where actual Moore went to court with Abraham Lincoln and his case got recognized that he's not a Negro. What's the difference between him and us if we're claiming to be of this lineage? Why can't we go argue our same situation? Our disposition is we're not black.
Right.
We're not Negroes. We're not African American. We're not none of this shit. So I kind of agree with John Ross' point. He justified the convention's action in an official statement by proposing that all men are free and equal. This does not apply to black citizens in the political sense, only in the nature.
Right.
Politically, you're not. Black citizens, according to law, black means death. According to science, According to science, black means death. Political science and social science, black means death. It has no standing. Now, the concept of nature, of course, you're free naturally until some of these policies or whatever invoke upon that idea, then you're done. He says civilized people come from nations, not colors. Islam.
That's true.
And anybody call themselves crayons?
Mm-mm.
Well, white people say,
True.
ask that white person that word was the nationality. Watch how quick they tell you what
Yep.
their grandfather were without doubting or contradicting themselves. They don't even know about granddaddy being from fucking Ireland. They've been in America their whole life. They don't know shit about Ireland. But I know my great granddad from Ireland,
Right.
which makes me Irish.
Right.
This shit is crazy. African American community response. Naturally, now we African Americans. We were black. The paragraph above. Dodge the hijack. Naturally, African Americans wanted to try to repeal this decision. Naturally, African Americans wanted to repeal this decision. Peter A.J., this guy right here, which was a prominent New York lawyer, politician, and the eldest son of founding father of the United States State Chief Justice John Jay, responded to Ross' proclamation by highlighting that the convention inception was to try to extend the right of suffrage, not for it, to be restricted. Got it.
Yeah.
That's true though. In his speech, he emphasized African Americans had committed no crime to be punished for. They are instead being persecuted for the color of their skin. Why y'all still here fucking voting for Kamala? She black. You know he black, right? Y'all doing the same exact shit they doing. Like this is the hijack. This is what they imposed on you. And you want to know what's called race politics or colorism. This is how you lost the right to vote in the first place. On these same fucking precepts. On the exact same precepts we're reading to you. This is how you lost your right to vote in the first place. Because Kamala black. Get out of here, man. Y'all sound crazy. There are instances being persecuted for the color of their skin. He also brought to light the fact that in other states, such as Virginia and North Carolina, free people of color are permitted to vote. As such, it would be not to be such a stretch to continue to allow black men the right to vote. This is an argument they're having. What did it say? 1838. In 1838, this argument about black people voting, but somehow in 1867, you have black senators. And the entirety of North Carolina is ran by black folks. The whole situation is ran by Negroes.
You see the comment by Gemini Slim. That's exactly the point that was being made earlier. Is that we built civilizations and we were in cold climates.
Oh yeah.
However, we didn't have to do that from a cave aspect. So I don't even believe in that whole cave story, just to clarify.
Sure.
But
whoa, hold up, Greg.
I can get into the depths of that too.
Please.
I'm not saying that when nobody was in caves. However, let me say the first point first.
Come on.
And get back to that. So if they were to have to go through that in a cave rather than in a civilization, it would create a much more aggressive mentality. However, the caves, speaking of the caves, there's 27 repeating symbols in a number of caves throughout Europe. So if they were the people who were in those caves, I don't believe they were, but whoever it was who was in those caves had to have had a connected civilization in order for 27 symbols to be repeated the way that they have been. So either you got to give them credit for that or it wasn't them. It's really that simple. And either way, it still creates an aggressive civilization of people if you have to survive those type of conditions. That was the point being made.
Understood.
Okay, so are you saying people did not live in caves, or you?
No. I'm saying that whoever it was who was in those caves, at one point in time, they had to have gone through an aggressive culture or growth to survive. And then at some point, whoever it was, if it was the same people or different people, If it was the same people or different people, they repeated the same 27 symbols all throughout European cave systems.
Yeah.
So
You
these
gotta
were
fight for
very,
food all
very
the time.
intelligent people, whoever it was.
Yeah, if you got to fight for your food all the time, make you super fucking aggressive, crazy, even. And then you don't cook it or season it. Perhaps the most well-known response from African American population of Pennsylvania was the appeal of 40,000 citizens threatened with disenfranchisement to the people of Pennsylvania. The document created by Robert Purvis, this guy right here, looks like Matthew McConaughey a little bit. He does. Outlined the numerous reasons why people of color should have the right to vote just as much as their white counterpart. This is the argument happened in 1838, by the way. This is not Dr. King. This is not the civil rights movement. This ain't none of that stuff at all. This is just a conversation like, hey, we can't exclude them out of the situation, bro. They got the right to vote. They presented this document as an appeal of the Reform Convention's decision of March 14th, 1838. The appeal outlined that African American communities is proud to be Pennsylvanians and should be such allowed to contribute to its democracy, notably stating that don't starve our patriotism. It further emphasizes that the colored population of Pennsylvania, which stood at 18,768 people, contributed in the very least 100,000. That's 1 million. 1,350,000 in taxes annually. Negroes in 1838 were paying over $1 million in taxes in one state. That's like what quadrupled that now in 1838. $1 million back then is like what 10 times the amount now in taxes annually. Furthermore, they stimulate the economy through home ownership. I thought they was on plantations in 1838. I thought they was picking. I thought they couldn't read it right. I thought they were. Why they tell us we was stupid in picking cotton in 1838? Furthermore, they stimulated the economy by going through home ownership. Redlining was not a thing yet. It wasn't even a thing. And rental, water bills, and were employed in various labor jobs. I thought Negroes were slaves in the 1830s. I don't know that they had jobs, regular old jobs, 9 to 5, going to work, getting off work, eating with the family, going back to work next morning. Same shit. It's, The appeal noted that African American communities should not be punished just so that the white blood won't be sullied by intermixture with theirs. We're getting to something else now. What's going on now? What just happened? The appeal noted that African American communities should not be punished just so that the white blood won't be sullied by intermixture with theirs. Although the actions of African American communities took in response to repeal their right to vote were not immediately successful, there were steps that would help begin the path of political freedom for black freedmen in Pennsylvania. That was just Pennsylvania. This shit went on throughout the entire Southeast region after 1960s.
And sullied means to ruin, like take away purity of something.
It was a lot of mulattoism back then too, by the way.
Yeah.
There's a lot of interbreeding, a lot of I almost said a Pornhub title. But there's a lot of that going on. There's a lot of that. It was a lot of BBC inside of YT. BBC and YT. Inside of the YT women. BBCs. Watch porn. You know.
We got it. All
right. I mean, they had the breeding farms in the 1840s, 1830s. The breeding farms where these white women would go into town and they would select certain Mandingo men just for that purpose. They were having diddy parties back then, unexclusively too. Like that shit was crazy. Anyway, this timeline go back. Scholars have identified many different causes of the war. This is with the Civil War. Civil War voting legislation happens. I'm fast forwarding the timeline now. Coming out of the Civil War, we see Negroes now starting to battle with things called Jim Crow. What is Jim Crow? And did Jim Crow really disenfranchise Negroes from voting? We had things such as the 15th Amendment also happened. 1870. The former abolitionists, and you're going to keep seeing these white liberal lobbyists called abolitionists appear out of nowhere magically. You're gonna start giving a whole lot of money away to organizations to help infiltrate and facilitate their agenda. The radical Republicans in Congress who fashioned the Reconstruction after the Civil War. The radical Republicans in Congress who fashioned Reconstruction after the Civil War, the 15th Amendment enacted in 1870, appear to signify the fulfillment all promises to African Americans. They were set free by the 13th Amendment, which with citizenship guaranteed by the 14th Amendment. Black males were given the right to vote by the 15th Amendment. In retrospect, Black males were given the right to vote, not Black women. Black males were given the right to vote by the 15th Amendment. In retrospect, it can be seen that the 15th Amendment was in reality another step in struggle for equality that would continue for more than a century before African Americans could begin to practice fully in American public and civic life. (13th, 14th, 15th Amendment. What do you guys say about those things?
It's just a thought more so than, okay, let me try to get it out. So I have an understanding that the original 15th Amendment was a Titles of Nobility Amendment. So that was, revoking citizenship and also the title of nobility. How do you think that played a yes? How do you think that played a part in the free citizens that had these titles, removing that, and then having the 15th Amendment come in as granting African American men? So you take the title away from them, and then you put them in as African American. How do you think that? This is just a thought.
It's an interesting thought, though. Because I'm looking at it like this reading gives it like it's a one swath group of Black people, whereas everything prior to it it's this distinction. Like there were people who were already able to vote, already landowners,
Yes,
and everything else. But now they try to paint it as if there wasn't that in this particular legislation.
right.
I want to deal with this comment real quick. Great point, Gray. He said, surely you were aware, this is addressing everybody, I guess, I would assume, that Blacks in southern states were still enslaved and working under plantation systems. I think all for success X, I think you're about poorly misinformed on that. We're talking about 1838. There were nobody on plantation in 1838. That was around the time of the first Great Migration, known as the Trail of Tears.
Mm-hmm.
Just want you to understand the timeline we're talking about. And then 1866, in the 60s, those same people who put off on the Trail of Tears in the 1830s were invited back on the land under what's called the 40 acres and a mule. Then the cultivating agriculture starts, but they were not under enslavement under plantations. Those plantations belonged to them. Andrew Johnson just flipped the land grants and gave it back to the YT people. Just want to be clear about the timeline. We know exactly where we are. I just want you to catch up what we're doing. 13th, no slavery unless you commit a crime. 14th creates federalized citizens. 15th Amendment give Black men the right to vote. What about the 13th Amendment, y'all? What about the 13th Amendment? Why would it be worded that way? Slavery is illegal unless you can go outside unless you can't do such unless you. It sounds more like a permissive situation rather than a piece of legislation. Like and it says crime.
Yeah, it's always it's a cyclical leadership style where they're it's social engineering to a sense. Like before that, now there was slavery without cause. Now we can make it slavery with cause. We can make the cause whatever cause we deem the cause, and then we can later on take that and expand slavery
Facts.
outside of the space
Facts.
that we're navigating right now.
Yeah. Yeah.
But with that said, my wife is here, and I have to pull out because you already know.
It was a
Pause.
pleasure.
Wait a minute.
It was a
Okay.
pleasure meeting you too, though.
Okay, brother. We about to go for a second too, man. Appreciate you, brother.
All right, no.
Golly put. I love it. Well, family, I think we just about covered everything. I had 15 tabs open. I think we covered all 15 15 tabs. All because I don't want to lose my spot
Yeah.
on what I'm going through. The only thing we did not really get into was the whole Jim Crow thing. I don't think that's really necessary to get into Jim Crowism. Maybe for another time we'll get into what Jim Crow really is. But you always see these photos where Black people were lining up to vote. I mean, we were never not allowed to vote. Certain legislation.
Again, I mean, if you get rid of the imagination, there is some truth to this. But if I'm thinking this is representing all Black people, then
It never state.
It never states that, So again, imagination definitely it puts that gap between reality for sure. I'm gonna keep saying that because it's just true.
No, that's true. I'm starting to understand what you're saying now. Let's say that.
Yeah.
You guys should go research the 1890 Mississippi State Convention. At this time, we have State Senator Chaim Revels, Black free man, who's the senator for Mississippi at this point. You have William T. Montgomery, the founder of Mound Bayou, Mississippi, also in this situation. Alabama got some cool shit going on around the 1870s, and South Carolina a little bit before that. So check it out, man. Tap into it. Appreciate y'all for stopping by.
Yeah, your audience is great. I mean, there's giving a lot of good feedback. So we appreciate
they on
the chat here for sure.
The chat be jumping like Jordan. They're always on there. For sure. Thank y'all again. Appreciate y'all. Be sure to go out and vote. Make sure it's your choice about who you vote with, who you vote for. This is your choice. Or
when you're voting for your elector.
I was gonna say that. Just remember, your imagination. You think Kamala's gonna see your name on that paper? Kamala voted for you. She don't know who you are. She doesn't even care. Has the slightest fucking idea.
Mr. Bino Gotti says you got to bring us back. I agree.
Well, it's based upon their availability, mostly mine. But Greg is a very busy man. Definitely enjoy having Uncharted Truth on here. We're supposed to be doing our movie reviews. We done missed a whole damn week. We're waiting to do what is it? The Butler.
Oh yeah.
We're waiting to do The Butler. I'm thinking we should just do like a quick joint on The Butler because I really want to get in Django. I really want to do Django.
Okay.
I really want to do Django, but I think we could do a quick spend 20-30 minutes on The Butler and then go into Django. So this week I'll drop the notification on the YouTube family. Stay tuned. We will be doing a movie review over The Butler and Django, and we kind of doing the same situation. We're gonna go into the movies. She's gonna give the director's analogy because she's actually a director and producer, and I'm gonna give the historical backlog of everything. So definitely stay tuned for this week. Stay up and vote or die.
That's terrible.
That was a slogan when Diddy was running.
How is that appealing to anyone?
Remember Diddy was running? Vote or die?
But don't remind
then
me.
Then it became Rock the Vote.
Terrible.
Rock the Vote was next after that. Vote or die. What the fuck? You scared?
That's terrible.
Vote or unalived. Rock the vote, man. Get the vote, man. As always, the Cash App is right down below. You want to drop a donation in the Cash App? Always welcome. I appreciate you guys so much. Until next time, Uncharted Truth, we appreciate you. We look forward to bringing you back on here. They started like the vibe. I like the vibe. Cool. I don't want to do our talking next time. I want you guys to definitely add some value.
You see how I go, man? I'm all over the place. My brain is weird. I don't know. I can never lead.
But I think they can keep up with it, though. I believe they keep up with it. This is my prediction. I don't know. My prediction with it. But anyway, y'all, hit the Cash App down below, scrolling on the screen, man. Appreciate y'all. Thanks for everything. Until next time, peace, love, and hair grease.